Hi, this is Bob Duchesne. Today's episode of Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is coming to you from I don't know where it's coming to you from.
We're in T3ND, if I have it correct. If we're not in T3ND, we're in T3R1.
Stand by. In less than 2 minutes, we'll know where Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is coming to you from today. Today is part 2 of a 2-part series on logging. It is something that we all take so much for granted. When you're out hunting, fishing, snowmobiling, recreating, anywhere in the woods, you're always coming across loggers. Am I right? Every main road has logging trucks on it. So many that we almost don't notice. On this very day, as we've driven north on Route 2 from Milford to Lincoln, and then east on Route 6 to Lee, we've seen dozens of logging trucks going the other way. In northern Maine, logging is what sustains much of the rest of our economy. But how many people really know what they're looking at when they see a logging operation? Let's find out. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Doors Equipment, Napa Auto Parts, and EBS. Logging is often a family business, or several businesses. Half the Maddens I know in the Old Town area are in the business, either cutting, hauling, or both. Most have their own companies. That's true for Scott Madden of Old Town and Tony Madden of Milford. On last week's episode, you might remember that I shared a truck ride with them from Milford up here to Lee, on our way to see a couple of logging sites. We'll do those visits on today's show. But on the drive up, I learned a lot. Logging is a tough business. Wood is wood. You make your money not on how valuable the tree is, but on how you get all that wood out of the forest and off to the markets without losing your flannel shirt. It means careful forestry, careful harvesting, careful marketing of the entire tree. From the valuable saw logs to the profitable pulp to the small, low-value stuff that can still produce energy somewhere if anyone is willing to take it. You don't get the high-value wood without taking the low-value. So you've got to do a lot of marketing for everything that gets hauled out by the skidder. And then you're subject to a wild marketplace where coated paper mills have been having trouble lately, to tissue mills, which have been doing okay, to saw log operations, which have either modernized or disappeared, to energy markets where biomass boilers have been disappearing in Old Town, Bucksport, and Lincoln. All that is influenced by the housing market, energy prices, renewable energy credits, government regulation, and weather. Against that volatility, you've got to make major investment decisions where a single harvester will cost you $500,000. And all the equipment on a single job site puts you on the hook for $2 million or even double that. So as you listen to today's show, keep in mind that every decision about which equipment to use or which project, every market for each stick of wood, every truck going in and out has to be considered very, very carefully. Finally, let me introduce the cast of characters on today's show. When we begin, I'm still in the pickup truck with Scott and Tony Madden. John Humphreys is sharing the back seat. He's the new communications director for the Professional Logging Contractors of Maine. Dana Doran will join us shortly. He's executive director, and he's following in the truck behind us. And we're heading right now toward one logging site being harvested by Kurt Babineau's crew of Babineau Trucking and Logging in West Enfield. Kurt's waiting for us, and we should be there in a few minutes. Meanwhile, I've got the microphone turned toward Scott and Tony Madden. Well, I want to congratulate you. It's hard to take me on a road I've never seen before, but you've succeeded. Where are we?
This is what they call the Engstrom Road, and we're in Lee. Mm-hmm. We're right here somewhere. We're coming out of Lee. We're in T3ND, if I have it correct. If we're not in T3ND, we're in T3R1. Because I have a job going in both of them, and they're right beside of each other, so...
Not even Santa Claus could find this place.
Yeah, that would be correct.
Yeah. There's some interesting trees in here.
And this was all IP, International Paper Ground. Mm-hmm. Originally, has been for years. And you'll see it's got all kinds of different stages of going. You'll see some
old grove of red pine
that they replanted with red pine. You'll see some large plantations up here.
30 years ago, it sure did look like the right thing to do.
Well, yeah.
And it probably still is. I mean, things are going to change. We've got probably going to see more sawmills come in that want these small logs. Mm-hmm.
So, there appears to be a little bit of shortage of, and it's starting to pick up a little bit, the housing starts, but it appears across the country there seems to be a shortage, or we're approaching it, a shortage of housing. I'm not sure why, with the economy being what it is, but
So that building material is going to get better. The log mills will do better.
They're starting to get better.
That's what it looks like. It looks like it is going to be a transition. It's going to be away from pulp and off to saw logs.
So if these sawmills can get better at producing, and they're doing pretty good now, using really, really small logs. And then we deliver to one mill that actually takes wood chips, makes the OSB board, and they make the beams. They used to be steel beams. Out of this wood chips, and it's stronger than steel.
Who's doing that?
Lennius. What's the name of it?
Not LP.
Louisiana Pacific.
Yeah, LP. Louisiana Pacific. Yeah,
so there's a market right there that can use wood chips, and
we have some sawmills, some of that small spruce and fir that we see on the road. And I still joke with them, but it's Pleasant River, and it's the Brochu family that was a logging family, and now they're into the sawmill side of things. I still joke with them that they're the only people I know who can make a 2x4 out of a 3-inch top. And they actually they sell I think it's a 1x3. That's one of theirs, but it was always a joke on how you could saw. We're used to thinking that you need a saw log as big as this steering wheel to make anything, and these guys are making lumber out of small wood.
Well, I heard that's what the Irving plant does.
The Irving plant, I want to say that there's a price difference. I almost think the price comes down, and you have to sort it on the load for anything over 12 inches. That's really designed. Most of that was designed for their own land. But that's a small log, and these guys get massive production out of small wood.
Yeah, everything is changing, and it's really hard to understand exactly what the change is going to lead to. Certainly your forest looks a little different if you can now produce saw logs out of smaller wood.
Yeah, I think overall they say that we're growing more fiber than we're cutting. I think it's just going to look different. I think it's going to be just smaller fiber as compared to the old growth big timber.
But whenever I have that discussion with a wildlife biologist, the change in the forest is what determines whether there's deer up north, with how many berries we have, whether Canada lynx has moved south, and
because the lynx needs to have the smaller softwood.
Yep, all that little brush.
They need more clear cuts for the
exactly
for the lynx.
It all works together. We've now entered the Babineau harvesting area, being conducted by Kurt Babineau. I'm struck right away by the piles of logs along the roadside waiting for pickup. They've already been sorted into 7 piles. And as we pass each pile, Scott and Madden can tell just by looking at them where they're going. The first pile on our left is dominated by some huge pine logs, a tree that was probably 150 years old.
That's pine logs.
Now this is a cool sight because we got
it all.
You got it all right here. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 piles of different logs.
You got that. You got spruce saw logs
on the right hand side. On the left hand,
hemlock saw logs.
Okay. Here's a few birch.
That's a high grade. So that's got a potential saw log of better. That's going to come to my yard, and we're going to determine what it is. Well, all they did was ran it long enough to make sure that they ran it out and cut it off to where there's a log stop. So somewhere in that tree, maybe right in the middle of it, there's a log that we're going to pick out. This is a hardwood pulp. There's some popple pulp. This is 8 foot going to J. This is the 100-inch tone. Look.
Yeah, the landscape timbers. I think that's what they make.
Yeah, so majority like to do landscape timbers, and they'll take hemlock boards and 2x4s off in it. But that's what we call hemlock, and that's going to Gardner's chip mill there. And then this is back to Actually, that's some spruce fir pulp and pine pulp going to Jay.
The other thing they're doing here, Bob, with the forwarder, they're piling the wood from the back side of the pile, so that keeps the road disturbance to a minimum. And this time of year, that's critical, because once you stir it up and it thaws, and it's just a mud pit.
Yeah. But these guys, we're going to see this whole job, and then we're going to see the forwarder actually unloading wood. Awesome. But you'll drive along here and you won't see much happening. When you get to my job, we're going to pull in and we're going to see all kinds of equipment.
All right, so what equipment am I looking at right now? What is that?
To your right is a Timber Pro forwarder. And he's the one that brings the logs out roadside and sorts them. Further up is that's a fella bunch of laying the wood down that you can't see real well, and then the processor will merchandise.
Kurt will walk right out to his house.
Yeah.
Hey Kurt, Tony wants to know how you This is Kurt Domino.
Hey Kurt, how are you? Good to see you.
Well, this isn't the I'm Tony. This is
what these guys cut all the time. No, this is what it is.
This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. I'm at a logging site in the woods east of Lee. I'm surrounded by professional loggers, and surrounding us, logging equipment and big piles of logs. And that's all I can tell about it. In a moment, I'll get Kurt Babineau to explain exactly what I'm looking at, because up to this point of the show, I really can't tell the difference between a fella buncher and a processor, and I'm not at all sure what a forwarder is. This is Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. We're on location today, and I'm not sure I could find my way back here with a map. We're in the woods somewhere east of Lee. I'm spending the morning in the woods with some professional loggers. My hosts are Scott and Tony Madden. We're joined by Dana Doran and John Humphreys of the Professional Logging Contractors Maine, and we're at a harvest being conducted by Kurt Babineau, who is standing right here. So what is it that you're doing on the site?
Well, this is what I'd call a modified cut-to-length operation. And what we're doing is we're using a fellow buncher to pre-fell all the timber, and then following behind that with a processor, and it's processing the wood inwards, logs and pulpwood. And once the wood's been processed, we forward the wood roadside. So it consists of primarily 3 machines to cut, fell, process, and put wood roadside.
One of the questions I've always been dying to ask and never knew who to ask, because I'm in the woods all the time, is I'm driving around a logging road, never expected to come across an operation, and there's one right in front of me. What am I going to do as a tourist in the woods, as somebody who's just out sightseeing? You know, what do I do when I come across an operation and somebody's in the road? How much inconvenience am I causing? What's my behavior supposed to be?
Well, the safe and wise thing to do would be to hang back and wait till the operator of the loader or limber knows you're there, and when the time allows, he'll let you through. But make sure you have that contact with him so he knows, you both know, you're aware of each other, and then when it's safe to do so, he will let you through.
Yeah. You can't assume that they, just because you looked at them and you swear the guy's looking at you, until they've made a hand gesture or they've lowered the whatever's moving on the ground, you can't assume that it's safe to pass to do that. You'll see on our jobs we have a little bit of different things, but that's what gets a lot of people in trouble to do that. We're very open, love to have people come look and see what we're doing. If they do it with respect, we're really doing that, because the biggest thing is we don't want to get anybody hurt.
Yeah.
You know, if they go by, like he says, we're more than happy to let you by. We have hunters. They may not hunt right on this site, but there may be a place down the road. We're more than happy to let them by. Very open to the public, and I know Kurt's the same way. But we always get in trouble. We've had cases, in my particular case, when I got a 40-foot boom swinging by. They thought the guy see him, and he's just sitting there going like this, and they'll go by, and all he was really doing was waiting for the grapple to go in, and the sun's in his eyes, and he takes off. And I mean, we've come within this close to hitting the vehicle when it goes by. So if you're trying to get a word out there, it would be probably to stay back a safe distance and then wait until the operator hand signals you to go by.
Yeah. I try like crazy to avoid operations in general just because I don't want to get in
Yep.
anybody's way, and there's plenty of roads to choose from. One of the things I look at is if I'm on a paved road going into a logging road, is there a lot of big, wide, dusty tracks that look fresh coming out of there?
Yep.
If there are, I don't do that road.
Yeah.
But what other signs could I look for to avoid trouble?
Oftentimes, we'll post signs. You know, men working, as you saw on the way in, there was a sign out there that said that we were working in here. And obvious signs, as you said, that a highly traveled road, that's a sign that some trucking going on.
Yeah. Usually if it's a side road, I can just turn around and leave. But sometimes it's right along the main artery going in, and you've sort of got to wait. So your advice, I guess, is to make sure the operator sees you. Be patient. They will move and let you by. But just make absolutely sure that you know where each other is.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't assume anything.
You wait for somebody to wave. Okay.
We're actually doing part of our safety training series this year. We'll probably include something on how to handle the public and make sure that they're aware that a logging operation is going on because of all the unknowns. And that's, I think, our biggest. It's not that we don't want people to come in. We actually invite them to come in. We want them to learn about the operation. We want them to ask questions, but it's the safety situation. So they do a wonderful job making sure that the public knows where folks are, but the public's also got to respect that at the same time. So it's a two-way street. But I would encourage the public to ask those questions. Don't just, hurry by. The machinery's big enough, and that's what scares a lot of people off. But ask questions.
All right, here's the second big question then. Let's say I'm on one of these roads, and I'm going in, truck's coming out. And I didn't even realize there was an operation until suddenly there's this big truck loaded down, and there's not a whole lot of room for either one of us to move. What is my protocol then?
Trucks have the right of way.
Trucks have, So I got to back up a half a
You
mile.
got to back up or get off the road. But even on a wide road like the big wide stud mill road, because of the crown, all the light vehicles should pull over and stop.
Oh, yeah. And I do that from both directions, even if somebody's coming up behind me.
Yeah.
And it makes sense because they kick up gravel. I don't want to ding my windshield or nothing else. So, the wide roads aren't a problem. I'm so afraid of getting down a logging road, and there's this big truck coming the other way, and there's nothing but mud and drainage ditches on both sides.
Yep. You got to back up.
Back up. Yeah, because he's not.
Absolutely not. No, it's too dangerous from the back up.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. I mean, can you monitor radio traffic, channel 19 or whatever? Is there any way that somebody can know what's going on?
Certainly, on this road, I believe it's posted. We're using channel 19, so the trucks and pickup trucks are communicating, coming in and coming out, so everyone knows where everybody is. That's why the trucks will come in, and if there's another truck coming out, he'll find a spot to pull off and wait, let the loaded truck pass through, and he'll continue on. So there's constant radio communication between the trucks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm in the woods a lot, and everything I've learned has been because I made a mistake.
That's normal for everybody.
I'm walking with Kurt Babineau to see if we can get a glimpse of the feller buncher in the woods. It's taking the trees down back there. A processor will come along later and finish the logs. Then a forwarder will come and collect them. The road is muddy. It's mid-December, and it's what loggers don't want to see. Frost that gets into the road at night, maybe with occasional snow, but then melts in the morning and churns up mud. In the Maine woods, firm ground isn't guaranteed during any season, and soft ground can stop you in your tracks. Is that causing you problems because of muddiness?
It has.
Yeah.
We'd like to see more of the cold weather. When the roads freeze and then thaw out, it's worse than a heavy rainstorm. They really soften up on us. So what he is doing is, as you can see the wood piles along the road, he is pre-felling these trees. And rather than yarding them roadside with a grapple skidder, we're processing the tree in woods.
That leaves all the brush in the woods?
It does.
You're going to see that again here shortly.
Yeah.
What he's doing, you're going to see again, like real soon. So
Where's your processor?
That's Scott Madden. They're looking to see where the processor is in the woods at the moment. We'll take a look at that next. Dana Doran is Executive Director of the Professional Logging Contractors.
There's no biomass coming off this lot because it's a cut-to-length system. So generally all of the limbs are going to be left in the forest. Whereas when we go see Scott's, they're going to bring tree length all the way out, and then they're going to chip up all the biomass generally and bring the softwood tops back in. So generally these are all by prescription, what the forester wants, what the block is, how much softwood there is. Is usually how they determine who's coming in. You see a lot of this wood is very small in diameter. There was some bigger stuff out here, but it's all softwood. So mostly a processor can cut through that a lot faster and a lot easier than the hardwood stands.
So this is all, in this area right here where all this operation is going on, it's pretty young.
Relatively speaking, yeah. I would say probably regen since the spruce budworm.
Yep.
And the hardwood has really, and the hemlock has really taken over since the budworm.
Yeah.
Because this was really cut over hard during budworm.
Okay, we have located the processor, and this is going to take us a few minutes. We're going to have to walk into the woods, picking our way uphill over rough terrain for several hundred yards to where the processor is working. So we'll meet you up there in a moment. In fact, we'll go to break and then meet you at the top of the hill. Today's show is about professional loggers and what's really going on out there in the woods. It's Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. Saturday mornings at 9, Sunday mornings at 8 on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. I'm in the woods east of Lee with a bunch of professional logging contractors. Scott and Tony Madden are here with me. This harvest is being conducted by Kurt Babineau, and we've scrambled uphill to this point so I can see what a processor really is. It has just shut down as we've climbed up, and the operator is swinging his door open.
This is Tom.
Hi, Tom.
Operator.
No need to get down.
This here is a processing head.
Uh-huh.
And this head will obviously delimb the trees and cut them to specific log lengths based on the species of tree and the quality of the tree, whether it's going to be a log cut or a pulpwood cut. As you see, looking at the pile here, like you got one up here that's got a hole in it, that's obviously pulpwood. This here would be a boltwood saw log here, highly computerized. There's a computer on the head that controls the functioning of the head. When there's a tree in the head of this machine, the head is measuring the length and the diameter of this tree, and it's also tallying what he's doing on a daily basis. Every tree he cuts, he processes, is recorded in the computer system. So he can tell you by species what he's handled on any given day.
Does it know what species, or does he have to tell it what species? You have to tell it.
He tells it simply by pushing a button.
Yeah.
All the information is pre-fed into the computer system, what the markets are, and as he's processing a tree, he'll let the computer know, and based on the diameter of the tree and the species, the computer knows what to do with that tree.
So you punch in birch, it does its thing?
Just punch in hardwood and it'll do whatever it wants.
Mm-hmm. And it knows what length to cut it to based on what you tell it?
Yeah, I got it programmed in the computer.
Yeah.
It'll, depending on top size, it'll switch back and forth depending on what it wants.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever have to argue with it?
No. I do, I shut it off.
The computering part of this makes it very efficient and very productive, because this will feed a tree at the rate of 16 feet per second. And it's so fast that you couldn't manually make those decisions as to where to cut that tree. So the computer is before it gets to its cut, it knows where it's going to stop at that head and make that cut.
So is it going to know a full-length tree versus a 8-foot tree as to what it's supposed to cut to?
Yeah, it measures off, it goes on top diameter. And like with these spruce logs and fir logs, I got to set up in my computer to take the logs down to a 5-inch top. If it goes below that 5-inch top, it'll automatically kick back to an 8-foot piece of pulp. It'll cut it there. It knows what to look for.
So it delimbs the whole thing, so it knows how long it is and how narrow it is at the top.
Yeah.
So before it ever cuts anything, it already knows all the dimensions of the wood.
Yep.
Yeah. It's smarter than most of my family. Now, some of these rigs would have, would be able to haul the logs out to you to have a carriage in the back or something, or is that a different piece of equipment?
That would be the forwarder.
Okay.
which will come through when he's completed the trail. It'll come through and pick up these logs, and load them, and carry them roadside. Not skid them, but carry them.
Right. And skidding would gouge up the surface, especially under wet conditions, more than a forwarder would.
It tends to.
Yeah.
What we're able to do here, we have all the brush and the waste product of the tree in the trail. So it beds the trail down. It helps protect the soils. So there's less potential harm to the grounds we're covering in this fashion.
How fast does what's left in the ground rot and make room for the next generation of trees?
Well, the great thing is that this all goes back into the soil versus being transported roadside. So this goes back into the soil, nutrients and whatnot for future forests. If you come through here in 3 or 4 years from now, this will be quite decomposed and settled to the floor even more so.
Saplings will be growing up through the branches.
Yes.
Come back fast.
Yes.
Because I go into both types of forest, and I'm always making mental notes about, okay, what's working here, and why is this bouncing back fast, and why isn't that one? So I never know.
Well, it has a lot to do with soil conditions and moisture, and most of our cuts are based on, well, they all are based on the regeneration growth we're trying to achieve. So the cut will be determined by the forester landless objectives.
Yeah. And in general, what is its objectives on this parcel?
This is a stand where we're doing an overstory removal because we've got some regeneration well established here, and it makes sense from a forestry standpoint to come in and remove the overstory and allow the regeneration to be the next forest.
So you're basically going to release this to grow up a little higher, faster.
Yes.
Yeah. Now the most important thing I can do is get out of the way. Tom is back in the cab, the processor is fired up, and one by one it is picking up trees that have been left scattered on the ground by the feller buncher that came through here earlier. The processor picks up each tree by the butt end, so it knows how thick the thickest end is. It then strips the branches, finishing at the top, so it knows how long the tree is and how fast it tapers. And it can now decide all by itself what to do with this tree and where to cut it. It can process a tree in 10 seconds. Even the biggest one I've seen it pick up was done in under 30 seconds. As he's processing the trees, Tom, the operator, is also placing them in small sorted piles. The forwarder will come get them in a little while. In fact, we're going to pick our way back downhill to the road and go back to a look at that forwarder so I can understand what it really is. We're way uphill at the moment. The terrain is rough, so this is going to take another few minutes. I'll meet you down on the road in about 3 to 4 minutes. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. This is Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket with Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. Today, I'm with professional loggers. I'm with Scott and Tony Madden. We have stopped at a Kurt Babineau harvesting site before we head over in a few minutes to a site that Scott has just about a mile down the road. I'm getting familiar with the logging equipment because up until now, they've just been big machines to me. So, Kurt, what am I looking at?
Well, this machine here is a forwarder, and once the trees have been delimbed and processed to specific lengths, this machine will pick them up and carry them roadside. And as he does so, he'll create sorts roadside as well, based on market and species.
And what we talked about a little bit back in the woods is this is on big rubber wheels.
It's an 8-wheeled machine. It's got tracks over the wheels for added traction and flotation.
So the impact on the land is less than some of the older equipment that would have skidded things out.
It certainly is.
He's actually in there picking it up by sorted trees.
Yeah, he'll gather up a load of either logs or pulpwood, so that when he hits the road, typically he can make one stop and offload and venture back into the woods.
Yeah. So when he goes back in, he'll go into the same spot and pick up a different load.
Certainly, yeah.
Okay. Now, this may seem like a dumb question, but I don't know any smart ones. You've got all these log piles sorted out into different lengths and then types of wood, and do you already know where all of it's going, or do you have to find a market for it?
We do. We have a marketing group that goes out and secures markets. So as we're processing this wood in woods, we know how to prep it to meet that market's need. So as it's sitting here roadside, we know where all this is going to wind up.
Where's the farthest any one of these piles is going to have to travel?
The furthest would be Verso Paper and J,
Yep.
roughly 150 miles from here.
Yeah.
That's one of our longer trucking areas.
Probably your so all the hardwood saw logs from this are going to go to Pasadumke, correct, and get sorted from there. And then from there, many of the hardwood sorts are actually going to go to Quebec. So all the hardwood that comes off of AFM ground that's not going to Verso, that's going to be saw logs, ends up in Pasadumke. So that wood, if you think about it, if it's north of Sugarloaf and it has a saw log, it's coming back to Pasadumke. Then from Pasadumke, it's getting sorted. Then it could be going to Quebec, it could be going to northern Maine to Presque Isle, or it could be going south. So some of that wood is going to travel 300 miles before it's even sawed.
In the long run, does that make sense, or is that just the best we can do?
That's how it's been set up.
Yeah.
Those products carry a high value, so they can do that. But with pulpwood grade wood, you can't transport it those distances because there's not enough value in it to do so.
Right. And wood chips, there's no value in transporting very far at all.
I wouldn't think so.
No.
Therein lies part of our struggle, is the transportation side of the house. That's where we've got a lot of efficiencies that we can gain in the long run.
Musical interlude. We're jumping sites in a hurry here. Kurt Babineau has been using a processor to prepare the wood in the forest, cutting to length in there and dropping the remaining slash right there in the ground. Now, we're at Scott Madden's site around the corner. He's taking the whole tree out of the woods, de-limbing in the road, and then taking the remaining slash back into the woods. It's a whole tree operation, I think. Scott?
This is basically the difference between that cut-to-length system and the tree-length system. The same machine's cutting it off the stump down there, but that grapple's pulling it out, limbs and all, and then we're limbing it out here and making our sorts, and then he's putting his brush back in.
You said that machine that's going back into the woods there is a grappler?
That's a grapple skidder, yeah.
As opposed to a skidder, a normal skidder which used to chain them out, or what?
Well, we used to have cable skidders, which had a winch. When the hand crews had it, those were all cable skidders.
Now you can grab 3 or 4 trees at a time.
Yeah, that machine will pull 2 or 3/4 at a time to bring it out.
Yep. And this is just a delimber, that's all it does?
Yep.
Just delims and stacks.
Delims it and stacks it, that's all that is.
Now, is there any kind of advantage to using this versus the machine we saw a little while ago?
If you were going to put up biomass, then you would want this system because he could be. We're not, because the market is just no good now.
Yeah.
But if we wanted to do it that way, is where you would do it.
So you've got all kinds of equipment. You've got all the equipment, and they just go to different sites depending on what the forestry objectives are there.
Yeah. There's 2 harvesters here, 2 limbers, and 2 grapples. And we'll actually see a different style grapple down here. This is a 4-wheel John Deere grapple. What we're going to see down there is a 6-wheel Tiger Cat, which is a much bigger skidder, but the 6 wheels, the intent behind the 6 wheels was for higher flotation.
Yeah, spread the weight out.
So when you're in soft ground, you can get more that way.
I was eyeballing from a distance at how big those tires are. 5 feet was my best guess.
Yeah, that one's going to be all of that.
Yeah.
That's going to be, we'll stand up beside of one, but it's 5, maybe 6 feet high.
Yeah.
The other one will have big tires on the front, but smaller, wider tires on the rear.
Now, what is a feller buncher compared to what we've seen so far? It's a term that gets thrown around a lot in the woods.
That's the only machine you didn't do, but that's the machine that cuts it off in the stump.
Yep.
Some people call it a harvester. Some people will call it a feller buncher. But a lot of people get confused because they'll call a processor a harvester. Some people will use that term too. So the correct term is a feller buncher. We call it, for those of us that have a tree-length system, we call it a harvester.
So it's a little bit interchangeable, and if I use them interchangeably, I won't sound too stupid.
Exactly.
Perfect.
It'll take somebody that knows what's going on to correct it. If you come from from the southern part of the United States and you tell them you got a harvester, they'll think that you have a processor, because that's what they'll call a harvester.
Okay. That just makes me think of the different terms we give to ice shacks.
Exactly.
In New Hampshire, it's a bob house.
Yeah.
It's an ice house, I think, in Vermont. These
Yeah.
are all northern New England states, and we can't even agree.
And that happens everywhere. It's like calling it, is that a delimber or is it a limber?
Yeah. There must be some kind of a size limit on what this can handle.
That tree, yes. That, those limbers, really, 20-inch are harvesters. These harvesters actually have 22-inch heads on them. Mm-hmm. So when you get a 20-inch tree, that's about really as big. We handle some bigger than that, but that's really as big as you want to get.
Yeah.
When you go overseas, they don't do hardly any of this. Everything overseas is all done with a processor, a cut-to-length system in the woods. Very few places will use this, but you'll go in the south of the United States and they'll be using that same machine as they'll use it up here. Very little bit of, they may do different in the south, depending on where you go. You'll see that's a 35-5-35 tire that's on that. If you go in the south, they'll use a 55 or a 65-5-35, and that's the difference in the width. And they may even put double skid tires on that same machine down in the south if you're in the swamps.
We talk about how wet we are and how that can make it difficult to do forestry operations, but in the south where there is no frost, they must have their own challenges in swampland.
And that's exactly what they have. They're looking for flotation, so a lot of places down there, when they do swamp logging or do that, some places they're actually allowed to run in the mud and the deep soil, and it doesn't bother them a bit. It still grows. A lot of what they do in the south is plantations.
Yeah.
So they'll go back in and prep the land when they're done. We're not doing plantations in this state.
Yeah, they can muck
anymore.
around down there because all they have is catfish. We got brook trout.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yep. See, in those machines, the first new limber I bought was in 1997. I had used ones up until then. In 1997, I paid $212,000 for a limber, and that one we just bought this spring, and that was $350,000. If that tells you where the price difference has gone.
That's a lot of debt service.
Yeah, it is.
Does it keep you awake at night?
Oh, that just becomes the norm.
Yeah.
So if you take that, you'll see the new harvester down there, but that grapple you just looked at, that's a 2010, so that's 5 years old. That grapple is $325,000, $350, and the harvester that's cutting wood ahead of it was $450. So you add those up, and it's just very expensive.
And this is just one job site.
This is just not even a full job site.
Scott Madden is doing the talking, but Tony Madden is right here too, accompanied by Dana Doran and John Humphreys from their association, the Professional Logging Contractors of Maine. You've heard how much this equipment costs, but how long does it last? Even that has changed in recent years. We'll get down to the six-wheel grappler and a brand new harvester in a moment. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Welcome back to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Today's show is in the woods just east of Lee. It's a show on logging, the life's blood of the northern Maine economy. This is Scott Madden's job site, and we're looking over his equipment, his very expensive equipment. How long would you expect one of these pieces of equipment to last?
We used to, in normal economy, you used to put 10,000 hours a year on a machine, and we used to get 2,000 hours a year out of it. Now you're seeing people run them out there with 20,000+ hours on them, because really you're having to live on your equity is what it amounts to. You can't afford to replace this equipment anywhere near as what we used to be. But normally a 10,000 hour machine, you'd be always looking to trade. In the good times you'd trade even more than that. And the reason you traded more than that was really because of your uptime, because you were able to run without breakdowns.
Yeah.
You'd really spend a lot of time in that. What it's forced us to do is have full-time mechanics, and we have to do a lot more maintenance and preventative maintenance than we've ever had to do in the past.
Do you have a whole crew that does nothing
Yeah.
but maintenance?
I have a whole crew now. We have a full garage, 3 full-time mechanics, and then these other guys, if we're slow in the woods, they're working in the garage. So
Yeah.
it's a non-stop.
Well, this isn't something where you can just bring the tow truck in and haul it back to the shop.
No.
You got to
No.
fix it on site?
No. Yeah, we fix most things on site. We'll take low beds. We have our own low bed too. So depending upon what it is, we may bring it back to the shop. But a lot of it is this job, we're within 30 miles of our shop. So if it was a major repair, depending upon what it is, we would try to take it back to the shop. And a lot of it depends upon the time of year. We would try taking it back to the shop, and doing it there. But we have a full service truck that we can work on the
Yeah.
outside too.
And mud season is a season where you do a lot of maintenance.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of it. I mean, that's what we do.
Okay, quick jump down to a newer type of skidder.
This is a grapple skidder, but this is a 6-wheel one, and it's really designed for soft areas, hard areas, long yards, mountainous type ground, or, soft ground. So this is not typical. They're becoming more popular in the state, but this is not the norm.
I have not seen one like this. I
No.
don't think ever.
And we only use it. I mean, I only have one of them
Yeah.
that we have in the things, and that's enough for us. Over in the mountain part of the state, they use a lot more of them.
In southern Maine, they're starting to buy a lot of these because they can run both directions. The operator can literally just turn
Yep.
around and run
Yep.
both directions, and you don't have to actually change the position of the chair other than swiveling it because it
Yep.
has 2 sets of controls. And it's very good on soft ground conditions, especially in the southern part of the state. So if folks want their property to look like a park, this will do a really nice job.
So how much do tires that are taller than me cost?
Oh, I think those tires right there, right now. My other ones are about pretty close to $4,000. What are those running now, Tony? Pretty close to $3,000 a tire, 2,500, 2,500, 3,000 a tire.
Per tire.
The front tire is going to run you now close to 4,200.
The tire change, I think that set right there is what, 15,000?
That
Those
was
bogey
16. That was 16, and I think those are up to
Yeah.
17, 18
I
now.
think you saw the forwarder had changed all the way around it.
Had 2 sets on it. Yep.
So we talk about, people complain about new tires on their pickup or car. It costs a lot to
$4,000 in tires.
That just sounds expensive.
This machine, I think, right now is. There you go. I was going to say.
These machines are about $475,000. Makes you want to get into logging, doesn't it?
No, it does not.
We've got to cut costs. I mean, for them to be profitable, they've got to cut costs wherever they can. I mean, we're looking at a lot of creative things like cooperative purchasing now, fuel purchasing, because that's the only way they're going to survive if they can cut their costs.
Fellow bunch is coming out.
Yeah, I got him sitting right there.
Okay.
So Scott, you're not putting up any biomass here?
We're not putting any biomass. We're bringing it all back in the woods from this job. We're just too far. Closest market that we have from here right now is Ashland or Sappy, and we're just out of reach.
West Field isn't taking anything.
We've got 5 roses. It's not working.
Okay, so what's the difference between what I'm looking at now and what I was looking at before?
What you were looking at before was after the tree was all cut. They were actually, that tree's going to lay down, they were taking the limbs off in it right there. Now we're going to bring it out here and take the limbs off in it
With the delimber.
with the delimber.
So all he's doing is cutting them down, and then
He's just
the
cutting them, making them piles, and they're going to pull it out to that limber.
grappler will bring it out, the limber will clean it off.
Yep.
Yep. That one looks fairly new.
That one is, I just bought that one, and that new limber you see out there this spring. Well, I say that, I bought this spring, and I bought that one, just came in this fall. So no, that one out there is only, how old is that limber?
Which one?
That,
Caterpillar? Yeesh, 3 months, 4 months?
if that, yeah. And this one here, I got this spring. So
We was at the logging show in Bangor this spring,
yeah, it
wasn't
was in May. So I bought this one in May. And
Yeah,
But to tell you how fast the change was, Tony Randy bought a new one. Derek bought a new
Four
one.
new ones this year.
We bought 4 new ones in the Madden family. And I had a chance to sell one of my used ones. I had sold one, had a chance to sell another one. That machine out there was technically Tony's. He had a new one. We had to order. We switched orders, so I took his. By the time his got there, 3 weeks after I took that one, we didn't need any because all the mills started changing. That's how fast this happened.
We went from a high to a low in a hurry.
Yeah. There's a lesson there. Being a professional logger isn't easy, but we've got a world-class natural resource and things always get better. It's a great profession for a young person to get into because the pay is high, jobs are in huge demand, and your office is in the woods. My thanks to Scott and Tony Madden for showing me the ropes, and to Dana Doran and John Humphreys of Professional Logging Contractors of Maine for a real eye-opener on Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. Brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Doors Equipment, Napa Auto Parts, and EBS. Saturday mornings at 9, Sunday mornings at 8 on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket.